this lesson. So we did the first 6 lessons, which is really good. I usually get through 5, but sometimes I get through 6, and you guys did that. So we started out at the very beginning of the year talking about what is a Christian worldview, what is a worldview, and then what is the Christian worldview. And then we talked about the 5 major worldviews in the world. Anybody want to name one of those? Christianity! Yay! That's one. What else?
Isn't one like polytheism? Right?
That's more like a type.
That comes under an umbrella. Yeah.
Pantheism.
Pantheism is one of them.
Naturalism.
Naturalism is one. Yes. Well,
Postmodernism?
atheism is a belief of some of the worldviews. Some are
Is
atheists.
there one postmodernism?
Postmodernism.
Spiritualism.
Spiritualism, that's 5. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we have another one, though, right? Naturalism/humanism, postmodernism, pantheism, spiritism. We got it. We got all of them. Good work.
Yeah.
Proud of you. So we went through those worldviews. We talked about what they believe, and then after that, we talked about who is God. So now we're talking about the Christian worldview. We spent time talking about what a worldview was and those 5 major worldviews, but we kind of just hung around at the 35,000-foot level with all those other ones. We didn't take a deep dive, but then we took a deep dive into the Christian worldview. So the lesson 3 was who is God, and then lesson 4 was is the Bible reliable. Lesson 5 was Jesus Christ was Jesus Christ resurrected, and why does that matter? And then the last one that we did was is Jesus Christ God, and what is the Trinity? And that just leaves us with one more. So the first 8 are required. I don't do the 8th one, as I told you before Christmas. It's called Did Life Happen or Were We Created? And that's the whole curriculum of junior year. So we don't do that one. But the last one we're going to do here then is what is a Christian and am I one? And then after that, after we get done with lesson 7, there are 22 22 is a picnic. So that doesn't, they're 21. So I don't know. I can't do math. There's, I don't know, 14-ish, 13-ish. I don't know, that we can do. And as I told you before Christmas, you'll have the opportunity to vote. Now, you won't vote as a class here. You will vote as a senior class. So I don't want to have to do 2 different things with each class. So between the 2 classes, we'll do the ones that you most want to do. So, just as and you'll get a ballot and everything, and I'll go over it again. I'll explain each one a little bit when the time comes. But here they are. Here are the ones that you'll be choosing from. Who is the God of Islam? Covenant. What is the big picture of God's redemption of man? Who is Satan and how does he work? What is a cult? Why don't the Jews believe in Jesus? How does God view the homosexual? What is the Christian role in cultural or racial reconciliation? What are the moral implications of bioethics? What are the biblical principles of wise financial planning? How can I become a leader who influences culture for Christ? We did that at the very beginning of the year. So we won't do that one. Why does God allow suffering? How do I make good life choices? What are the keys to building healthy relationships? So we'll end up doing 3 or 4 of those, and we'll start with the one that gets the highest votes, and we'll go down from there. So that's what this semester looks like. And then I want to review a little bit of what we've done thus far. And we might begin lesson 7, but we might wait until tomorrow. So the Christian worldview is the way God views the world. And when we went through that lesson, we talked about, well, this is just. So we talked about that the Christian worldview is the way God views the world. So we have to know God and know God's priorities as part of that. And so we talked about in Christianity, there's only one God, and we are, as believers, we are God's children. And He has set us apart. He has a purpose for our life. We live eternally. We've been saved. We've been forgiven. And He gives us the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. And we talked about, in this, we talked about how the world views those things, and what the world, the way the world sees the world, and how that differs from the Christian worldview. And then we talked about the 5 life questions, or 4 life questions. What hope? Or excuse me. What? That's 3. Where's the one? Where did I come? Why is there such a mess in the world? What hope do I have? What is my purpose in life? And what happens when I die? And we went through movie clips about different worldviews, or about Christian worldview clips. And then the second one was, what are the 5 major major worldviews? And the anchor for that was, everyone has a worldview. Whether you think you have one or not, whether you know what it is or not, everyone has a worldview. And so that's when we went through these. We talked about Christianity. We kind of reviewed Christianity, but then we talked about naturalism / humanism. We talked about postmodernism, and pantheism, and spiritism, and we talked about what is a worldview, and we did that worldview iceberg thing. And then we watched videos so that we could see what worldview, because any sort of movie or song or book or whatever, had the author, the creator of that, has a worldview and generally expresses that worldview through those things. So we watched movies and played What's the Worldview with those. And then we talked about, like, at the 30,000 foot level, like, what is theism? And the only theistic religions are Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Those are the only ones that believe in a God. They can't all be true. They could all be false, but they can't all be true. Why is that? Put on your junior Bible class. Why is that? Why can't they all be true? Because that's what people like to believe. Well, that's true for you, but that's not true for me. So why can't they all be true? Yeah. 2 contradictory claims cannot be true. They can both be false, but they can't both be true at the same time. Is that what you're going to say, John? They're competing truth claims. Actually, great job. Um, so then we talked about who is God, and we talked about um, uh, his attributes. We went through a lot of attributes of God, and certainly we didn't go through all of them because we can't. And then we compared Christianity to some other world religions. And we looked a little bit at cults and the occult. As you heard me say, there is a lesson on cults. It's mostly on Mormonism, but that is, we can dive deeper into that if you want to this semester. And then we talked about the Bible. Is it reliable? How do we know that the Bible we read in our hands is what was written? How do we know that it's true? And we spent a whole lot of time talking about early manuscripts and comparing manuscripts and how do we know um, who wrote what and how sure are we of that, and we talked about biblical prophecy and the prophecies that have been fulfilled, um, and we talked about the evidence in archaeology and the external and internal evidence for the Bible, that there are authors. One of them was that there are authors very early on who give the same basic story for Jesus' life as the Bible does, and they weren't believers. They didn't believe in Jesus, but they told his story, and it was very much the same as the Bible. So we talked about the Bible and that it's reliable. And then we talked about the resurrection of Jesus and did he really rise? And what proof do we have of that resurrection? And again, there are sources outside of the Bible from people who don't believe in Jesus who tell that story. Now, they don't believe it. They say something like he was reported to be risen, but resurrected. But they're telling the same basic story as the Bible. That, which brings us to the next one, which is the last one we did, is Jesus Christ God, and what is the Trinity? And so we talked about Jesus being God, and we talked about Liar, Lunatic Lord, and how can we know, that God is three in one, and talked about some world religions, and then we were done for the semester. So now let's talk a little bit about this next one. But before I do that, and we will get started with it, but before I do that, I want to give you up front it's not a test. It's going to be a writing assignment, but your assessment for this lesson. I don't have a due date for it yet because we're just starting, but I'll give you plenty of advanced warning. And you can even see there that I say the assessment in quotation marks. For lesson 7 will be to consider and express your testimony. In other words, how you came to know Christ. Now, there's an asterisk there. So I want to read that asterisk right away here. If you would say that you don't know Christ or you don't know if you know Christ, I don't want you to pretend to know him for this assignment. You're not going to be graded on whether or not you're a Christian. You're not going to be graded by a spectacular, that you have to have a spectacular conversion story. That's not what it's about. And I'll explain what it's about as we go along. So I don't want you to pretend to know Jesus for this assignment. I would like for you to just tell your story of how Jesus has been or has not been a part of your life. Your testimony doesn't have to end with how you trusted Christ. It can be where you are with Jesus right now, wherever that is. And that might be Jesus really isn't part of my life, or part of my understanding. You're not going to lose any points. So I want you to be honest. And I'm not going to tell anyone. I'm not going to show it to anyone. I'll be the only person reading that. So there's no reason for you to not be honest. So you will have two choices as to how to express your testimony. So you pick one or the other, not both. They're explained on the next page. In short, you will use either the graphic organizer or the instructions given to tell the story of how you came to Christ or where you are with Christ right now. If you choose the graphic organizer, you will create a poster or some other creative medium to tell the story of your testimony. If you choose the written instructions, you will write your testimony using the instructions as a template. So I want to start with that one that is something more creative. It can be anything. I would like for you to run it by me if it isn't, something that I've shown you or talked about. But I've gotten a lot of different things, and my favorite one, and I asked her if I could keep it, and she said yes, is this children's book that was written by a student that graduated a couple of years ago. And she has this is just a beautiful book. I'm going to read it to you because it's just really beautiful. She says, my name is, I was born on December 20th, 2003. Both of my parents are born-again believers, and I have been my whole life. They made a decision to raise up their children in the way they should go, so when they were old, they would not depart. And it says, I have always known that I came to Christ when I was 4 years old, but I do not remember the day I converted. My dad says I started asking questions about Jesus and how to be saved when I was that age. I grew up knowing stuff about God and believing in him. When I was about 11 years old, God began to work in my life by changing my circumstances. Though there were many things changing in my life during this time, the main thing was transitioning to homeschooling. My sister and I were but they were in public school, in elementary school. And our grandma took on the task of homeschooling us for 5th grade through middle school. My grandma taught me the importance of prayer and had us read scripture every morning. Homeschool was a strange transition for me. At first, I hated it because I had to leave all my friends from public school. This turned out to be a blessing in disguise. My sister and I became really close during this time, so we began to keep each other accountable. After a year or two of homeschool, I began to see my life change for the better. My relationship with God became stronger, and I realized how personal and involved he was in my life. The last 2 years of my homeschool career, I experienced a lot more joy and contentedness in my life. Once 8th grade came along, God began to prepare me for the next big change in my life. My parents wanted my sister and me to be enrolled in a Christian school and had us visit both Omaha Christian Academy and Cornerstone Christian School. We had first visited Omaha Christian and thought the school was okay. The day we visited Cornerstone Christian, we all knew that God wanted us to be there. Mrs. Schrod prayed with my family on our visit. I told her when we took the tour that she had me at Let's Pray. So I'm sure they felt that way too. To visit and then felt at home. After this, everything fell perfectly into place. We started at Cornerstone our freshman year and immediately began to see God working. This was a hard transition and brought me closer to God by teaching me the importance of Christian community and showing love to one another. These were things I had not previously thought of. Our theme verse that year was 1 Corinthians 13:13. Another step in my spiritual journey started a little before my freshman year. God placed a mental health trial into my life that lasted throughout most of my high school career. This included feeling worthless and like everything about me somehow tainted people's views on my life. I knew this belief did not come from God, but that He had allowed it to happen to teach me something. Though through this experience, I have learned who God says I am. He taught me that He loves me and created me the way He wanted me to be. This in turn grew my faith and trust in Him. As of right now, my mind has been in a better place. I still struggle with a few symptoms of mental illness, but have learned skills to help deal with them. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. When I think about how my relationship with God has been going these days, I realize how much I focus on the business of life rather than God. I started a job this year and joined NHS, so my free time has been limited to a few hours a week. God has been showing me how much time I have devoted to things other than Him. Finding time for God has been a struggle for me this year. I came to the conclusion that I need to make time for God rather than wait for time to come. I do not spend as much time with God as I would like. This is something I want to work on, especially with all the changes coming up soon in my life. As I think about college and life after high school, I worry about making the right decisions. I trust God's decision much more than my own and know that He will tell me where to go with my life. Even when I fall short, I know that Jesus has already paid my price and that all I can give Him is my heart. This is one of the sometimes when something is so excellent, it just blows me away. I write that my pen spontaneously gave them extra credit, and that's what I did with this one. So I read this to you an example of a testimony and a meaningful testimony, but I also read it to you so that you can see that it doesn't just have to be, I was born into a Christian family, and there's nothing wrong with that testimony, but it doesn't just have to be something real. It can be something that you've created. And again, I won't, like if you do a PowerPoint, I'm not going to show the class your PowerPoint. I'm going to read that PowerPoint, nobody else. So you have the option to do something creative or to do a written testimony. So the requirements for the written testimony, using the instructions, write answers to the prompts given. It should be obvious that you have carefully considered and answered the prompts. Your testimony should be typed, double-spaced, and one-sided in 12-point Arial or Calibri font. Your testimony should be free of spelling and grammatical errors. You'll receive a rubric for this project, and I will give you the due date. And then I already gave you that misnomer. If you feel like you don't know Jesus, don't tell me you do to fake it. Tell me the truth. And just tell me where you are or aren't with Jesus. at this point. So that's how we're going to. That's the summative thing that we'll do for this, and we'll go through this lesson. We're not going to start it today, but we'll go through this. Well, maybe I'll do this. But, I'll do this first introduction, and then we'll call it a day for today. So I already told you the anchor. The anchor is the Christian believes in Christ and follows Him. According to the to pollster George Barna, 86% of people in the United States claim to be Christians. Did I read this already? Okay, I just remember it then. With so many who say they are Christians, it is surprising to learn the difference in how Christian lives are and how non-believer lives are remarkably similar. The majority of both see money as the most important sign of success. Divorce rates for Christians and non-believers are similar, as are the rates of teenagers who are sexually active. How does one explain such statistics that the Barna Group has uncovered? Could it be that many who think they are Christians are not at all? And I added this, does Christ not make a difference in our lives? Or does He? A key in beginning to understand what is happening is to ask questions. What is a Christian? Am I one? Jesus established the criteria of His disciples with a call to come follow me. Jesus is the cornerstone of the Christian faith. If we are to know what it means to be a follower of Christ, we must know Christ. A commitment to Christ is built on love and obedience, those qualities which embodied His life on earth. As we grow in our Christian faith, our lives should become increasingly conformed to the example He set for us to follow. So here are the goals of this lesson. Students will know and answer the following question: what does it mean to be a Christian? Students will know that being a Christian is not only believing Christ for salvation, but also living their lives in such a way that glorifies God. Students will become honest before God about their relationship with Him. Students will understand who they are in Christ and how much they are loved. Students will make a definitive commitment to follow Christ or not to follow Him. And each is possible. Okay, so we're going to stop there for today. You've got some time to chat, and we'll pick up here tomorrow.
Excuse me,
Yes.